Hello. See, today I'm gonna mess around with or try to get this Azure emulator for local storage and testing working on my MacBook. There are 3 or 4 different ways to do it. The reason why I need to do this is one, because I'm on a Mac and the current Azure Storage emulator, which is the old school one, uses as a behind the scenes mechanism for storing the Azure blobs, queues, everything it does to emulate what Azure is really doing with blob storage. Uses a SQLite database behind the scenes, and fortunately or unfortunately not, you don't have that ability to use SQL Express. I think I said SQLite before, probably because I was doing previous blogging with SQLite, but SQL Express, and there's no way to run SQL Server Express on a Mac, at least not without using a Docker image or something. So the Azure emulator doesn't work. Luckily, there's this open source project that I found a couple of weeks ago when I was messing around. And the good thing about it is that Microsoft seems to be moving towards using this open source one and eventually sunsetting the storage emulator. So I'm going to mess around with it for a bit and hopefully get it to work. There are 3 different ways that you can run this. Actually, technically 4 ways, but 4th one requires you to actually run, build, and do all the code yourself, which I don't want to do. You can run it through the Visual Studio extension, which I actually already installed the product and ran it through the Visual Studio extension. I did it through npm, but I ended up downloading the Visual Studio extension so I can see it also. You can then also run it through a Docker image. I'd rather not do that because I don't want to mess with Docker, even though I have Docker working on this laptop. I'd rather actually just get it running bare metal so I can start it and stop it and not forget about the Docker portion. So let me open up Visual Studio Code. Hopefully I have the latest version installed of it. Don't need to see my blog post engine, but let's go see here. I think I installed it. Azurite. Yes, I have it installed. So if you take a look at it, kind of gives you a history of it. It hasn't been updated in a while. I think it's actually been a couple of days. But it tells you what version of a storage API it supports, anything essentially 3 and up. And then a couple of different ways that you can download it and use it. You can go through all the docs here to give you setup instructions, etc. But essentially allows you to use it from here. I installed it via npm. Let me make sure that it's still there. Yep. You can see my autocomplete actually has it. I gotta mess around with my green screen again. It's getting all faded. It's almost as if the daylight changes in the house, even though I'm using the same lights and everything's in the same position. Let's just tweak the chroma filter a little bit. Get rid of that blackening out. Let's try 10. Nope. Let's try 30. Let's try 40. Yeah, better. There we go. Coming a pro with that. Unfortunately, I shouldn't have to change it all the time. Okay, so now it's installed with the latest version. If I run Azurite, it will execute what I want for running it. Essentially, you need to do a couple different things with it. There's, I think, 4 or 5 different command line parameters to pass to it. This documentation shows you the basics, which are if I'm going to do just a blob itself or just a queue, and then a location. So it's Azurite itself, and then file location where you want it to use as a workspace, and then what ports you want it to listen for. If you're using the Visual Studio extension, you have several different options. If I just do Azurite start, it's going to start all the services. I don't know if it just does a default directory or I have to pick it. So let's go and see. Azurite clean. I don't think I have anything, but let's just run clean just to make sure everything is clean. Azurite start. Started a default listener on port 10,000 and 10,001. So now I have it running. So if I go through a storage emulator, I should have Azure somewhere here. I think that's that one. Yep. It's going to go through and do a whole bunch of stuff with it. Essentially, it's connecting to my key. Let's see if I can go and add a local one while it's waiting to go. I have to wait for it to connect to Azure and make everything. Which Azure account? I don't want any of those. Yeah, I don't want any of those because I want it local. These are all the public ones. Azure Storage, attached storage account. Let's try that. Connection string. So this uses the local hosts for it. So let's get the connection string from here. In here somewhere. Let's try dev account, dev store account 1. Nope, I sent it. I guess I have to give it the connection information. Maybe I can't connect through there. I thought I had a separate Azure one here for storage. Let's see what else I have in my extensions. That storage account. Oh yeah, configure static website already. It was only announced 2 days ago. It was a local. I don't want to do that. I want to connect to it. Let's try this connection string. Sorry, my copy paste fell. So Control Shift P, attach storage account. It's not what I had on the clipboard. Let's try it. Oh, come on. Why is my copy paste not working? Let's go to documentation for it. There was something in this page for the long connection string. Let's just try this. Nope. Full connection string. Let's try this. If this doesn't work, it might not just work with the extension I have. Oh, it's looking promising. Storage account is already attached. Great. Where do I see it? Oh, here it is. Attached storage accounts. I guess I should have scrolled. Local emulator. Ha! There we go. Duh, Joe, you should have just looked. So now these are the two spots for it. So now I have blob containers and queues locally. Wonder where it's actually installed. I don't remember if I set it up. To use it. Let's see what the command line says. You're supposed to pass it a folder location when you start it. One of it just uses a dummy or default one for it. Azurite-help. Let's try that. By the way, just don't Google Azure, right? Because that's some kind of mineral or rock. So you'd want to do Azurite blob or Azurite storage. -H. Oh, so default is the current working directory. So now I think I just added a directory here. Let me go and change here and double check. Yep, I just added 2 directories to my site. Don't want to do that. So let's go and stop that. Compose Azurite stop. Close. And it's closed. So I want to start this off and put it in a different directory. So let's go to my projects directory, which actually should just cd ... and then cd databases. If I list here, should have a couple things. So I technically want it to start here. Azurite, and then let's give us some more help. -L, and then use an existing path. So users /JoeG with diagnose /projects /databases. People access the login console. So now it should start and put that stuff here. And now it's going to be listening because I didn't do silent mode. So if let me close this project because I don't want it to mess around with it anymore since I just ended up adding files to it. Luckily this is git track, so I could just undo. Hey, what are you doing? Okay, so these are here. Let's go and close this solution. And I think I lost the terminal when I did that. See if it's still working. Go to Azure. Wait for storage to open up. I just can't get it in Visual Studio by itself, so let me go into the folder I ultimately going to want to do this. Project / my event. Projects / actually, let's open up that folder. Let's get the terminal window, and Azure's got to reload now. Come on. While this is loading, I might as well go check to see what the Writer app has for it. Let's do the Azure Explorer here. Storage accounts. Storage emulator. I don't know if that's smart enough to get the local one already. They didn't add anything to it. It should be just doing the local dev account. While that's refreshing, let's come back here and see. No, not you. Let's see if you're done. Yay, you're done. Local emulator, blob containers. Okay, they're not started, probably because I reloaded Visual Studio Code and it killed those emulators. So let's do the Azurite, see blah 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 databases, and go. Started successfully. Let's refresh this part. I don't want to have to refresh them all. Yep. It already knows it's there. We got the log message saying you're good to go. So I should see blob containers in here. There's nothing and no queues. Great. So let's come back here to this. Refresh. Let's see if I need to do anything for local. This might only work with the production ones, even though it has the storage account. Create storage account. And it's actually physically created within here. Let's just try creating a blob container and see what happens. Test container. Block container must start with the letter or number and can only contain only letters and numbers and dash character. Every dat. What did I do? Test container. I guess it's case sensitive. So created one locally. Let's go and check to see here if it's here. So let's refresh this. And it's there. Cool. So I got it working locally. Let's see if you now support the queues, which is what I want to do next. Blob, create block container. Storage account should be done within the storage account. I don't want app service, don't want resource manager. Storage. I have no idea what that says. I can't read. Oh, online privacy statement. So this is, I can attach to the dev one, which I think I'm already attached to. So dev account, there's a dev store account one. Where is that connection string? Dev store account one, and then we need the account key, which is that. Now I haven't played with Writer in the Azure Explorer. It might only allow for the containers for it. I wonder if I can change this. Ooh, I can specify custom endpoints. There it goes. Let's see what happens with just this one. Dev store account. Show advanced info. Storage key is not. Okay. So let's go and remove. Oh, we can modify it. Let's do a specify. Oh, I missed part of the connection string. That's why. Now let's try it. See if it works. Didn't fail. Yes, it did. Check the original exception. Server failed to authenticate. Make sure authorization header. Okay. So we'll leave this one alone for now. Let's just do a quick Google. JetBrains Writer, Azure Explorer queues. Let me see if there's something on their plugin page for it. I added the tools via here, so let's do preferences. Don't know why it keeps bringing me back to that one. Should be a plugin down here, tools, Azure App Services, functions. No, don't want that. Here it is, plugins. And I'm using the Azure Toolkit. Let's check the plugin. Azure Services, Functions, SQL Database, Explorer, Cloud Shell, Core Tools. So I can mess around with that. Azure Explorer, View, Manage Azure Resources, Storage Accounts. Well, it says I can do it all. And right here it says storage account. Control F, Q, nothing in there for Q, storage. It's the only reference to it. Okay, let's try one last thing with it, and then we'll go to Visual Studio. If I can give it this whole thing. Oh, it's HTTP. I can't do HTTPS. Maybe that's it. Stop it. Shouldn't have two copies of Writer open. I was too lazy to close one of them. Let's do create storage account. No, wrong thing. Attached to external storage account. Dev store account 1. Count key. Do I still have it on clipboard? Yes, I do. Use HTTP because it's local. And then blob endpoint is, stop it, is that. Blob endpoint is that. I hate this dictionary thing on the Mac, and there's no way to disable it. I know Azurite doesn't do tables, so we'll skip that one. And I think this is just 1001. Look okay, fingers crossed, connection string requires blob endpoints. Got the blobs. Let's see if I can add a queue. I guess it only deals with blobs. Not cool. Okay, let's detach from that one. I have to see if I can issue a PR for it. Figure it out. Okay, so let's go back to Visual Studio Code. We got our test container and queues. So what we want to do is create a couple of different queues and make sure that we can connect to it. So the idea behind this app is we are going to ultimately build out a way for conference presenters or streamers, anyone that has kind of events, to store your events in this application, your presentation, when you're doing it, when you're scheduled, and then we'll automatically go out and schedule tweets or post to Facebook. When the event is done, you can track how many people are at the event, upload video. If it's an online stream like this, I can go and put down the YouTube video to it, potentially store it off in Azure Blob Storage, and then maybe go out and update the MVP Summit site with the contribution list. So there's a lot of things that want to happen. So when I was building this, we had a wish list. I'm gonna go and close this so it doesn't keep, don't have to keep going back and forth to that one. So I have this feature list here. So we want events when a new presentation is added, when a presentation has been updated, completed, scheduled, or accepted. So let's go with the new presentation added right now. So in order to do that, we need to create a queue. Presentation added, hyphens, not underscores. So typically what I would do is add the type of message this is going to be used for, and then the actual event. So this is saying when a presentation is added, I want to go and do something. So should add one of those. I got a 201 that was successful right here. If I open this up, can I do here, deploy to static website, attach storage accounts, refresh. I want to just show those and get rid of all these others. Actually, you know what I probably do? I think I have the Storage Explorer on here. Let me open up that. Storage, Azure Storage Explorer. This one's a lot easier to work with when it comes to blob storage and everything else. This is not that simple. Let us know what you think. No. Stores a lot of the authentication stuff in your keychain on the Mac. I'm not going to re-authenticate everything because I don't want it to go out. So let's go to local and attached, storage accounts, attached containers. I don't know if that's where it's at. No. I guess these are manually added ones. This is the emulator that we just had as our test container. Oh, it actually has queues and yeah, it doesn't have tables. I didn't think it had tables because table functionality is not built into it yet. So I have the presentation added. If I go and click on it, I can see the ID, message text, when it was inserted, when it expires, and how many people are there. So now I have the ability to go and add messages. If I wanted, I could add a dummy message. I don't have anything watching the queues right now or anything adding to the queues. So let's go and create something to add to the queue. So within our domain, we have a bunch of models. Right now there are 2. I will add another folder here, and we are going to create another one called messages. Where we're going to store all the different messages for it. And then up here, we are going to add another folder for constants. And then here, we're going to add a class. And this is going to be a status class, and we're going to call it queue names. QUE names. What I do here is this domain class is going to be shared amongst a lot of different services. And this is where I'm going to kind of put all of the constants for Q. So far we have one Q, public static Q names. Can do something if we want to get really particular with it and have another class here called presentations, and then add public static read only constant string, and then presentation dash added. I think I can do read only and static. I always get that one mixed up. Yeah. And I got the ordering wrong, I betcha. Oh, because it's already static. What are you complaining about? Split string, no. Oh. Headed. So now in our class, we can reference Q names, presentations, and then added as the folder. So our syntax would be something like Q names dot presentations dot added as the name for the queue, which we'll need later on. But I tend to do this to make it a little bit easier for finding it, so I don't have to hard code the names all over the place. Now for messages, we are going to want to add a new class for messages and call it messages presentation added. You can do the same thing and break it down, like have a folder for messages and then presentation and then added, which actually will work to be consistent. So let's go and add new directory, call it presentations, go into that directory, add a new class, new added. So this is the message. This is whatever we want to dump in the queue to allow whatever's going to pick up messages from the queue to be able to retrieve anything out of it. So right now, I think we will just put in the ID of the presentation. So the ID is an integer field. So we can do public presentation ID. Come on, Joe. Int presentation ID get set. The ID of the presentation that was added. Now you're probably wondering, why would we do that? We already have a presentation element. If we look at the messages, I already have, or actually not messages, but the models, I already have something that has everything I'm going to use. Typically, you don't want to pass a lot of that data back to the queue. Just give the queue minimum chunk of data, in this case, the presentation ID, and then let whatever is processing that queue go out and do it. So it's more of a pull. Instead of me taking the contents of a presentation and going and sending it off to the queue, storing the ID, the title, abstract, more information and everything. I'm just going to say this number was added. Then something's going to come along and say, oh, this number was added. Let me go get the details of it. And it's going to go out and call the API and do that. And I got an extra using there. Let's get rid of that. Now I need to be able to tie when a presentation was added. So for this, I have to go to our business layer and presentation manager. So in here, we have a send presentation async method, does some validation for the presentation. Once it's done, it goes and calls it. This method returns back a presentation, which would, have the presentation ID in it. So we're going to want to get a copy of this presentation. And I think I need to await that. Kind of new to the whole async and await, so the syntax might be wrong for now. Oh, actually, that got a task back, I think. And then we are going to get the presentation ID, create a new queue method, or message, add queue message to queue. Okay, so those are the next couple of steps we want. What are you complaining about now? Make method async. Well, it should be async. Is that not? Oh, it's because it's a task. So let's see here, presentation dot. Yeah, I need to await on that. So how do I do that? I don't know. Let's make sure you return a task. Save schedule, returns a task. And this returns a task. So it goes tasks all the way down to the actual implementation, which should be this. Should be a save presentation somewhere. Yeah, right here. Which returns a task. Okay, so what do I do here? Do I do this? What happens if I do make it async? Okay, does that break anything else? Presentation dot. Good, I got the ID. No, I don't. Ah, I'm in the wrong method. Let's go in. Control Z. A lot of that. I'm going to copy this out because I want that. And set this back to return. That's the schedule presentation. We don't want that one yet. We want the save presentation. That's this bad boy. So let's turn this into async. And then here we're going to do var presentation equals await. And I already have a presentation declared. So let's do this as saved presentation. Now that we have a saved presentation, we're going to want to create a message. Var edit presentation message equals new domain dot models dot messages dot presentations dot edit, and then give this the presentation ID equals saved presentation dot presentation ID. And now we have the message and we need to send the message off. I don't have anything yet in this project for it, so let's go to NuGet and see what we have. Azure Storage. So there's Windows Azure Storage, which supports a bunch of frameworks. I don't think that's the latest. I think that's the old one. Let's go and check out. Oh, no, is this in its own window? Uncollapse. Let's go check out the site where we have this, and let's see how we can connect, create, manage, blah, blah, blah. Develop. No, transfer data. No, mine blobs. Let's get out of blob storage for a second. I want Azure Q. .NET. Samples use C for legacy code, C blobs. These samples use the latest Azure Storage. So let's see, Q samples, authenticate, create. I don't want to authenticate. Create a queue and add a message. It says Azure Storage. So let's go back to the project and look for Azure Storage. This one looks better, 12.4. This is not the right package. There's storage queues. Guessing that's what we want. So let's try and add this one. And we want to add this to our business layer. Install. Now let's go take a look at the syntax code. Queue connection string queue name. And we are probably just going to hard code the connection string for now, just to get it to work, and then I'll refactor everything out. Peak messages received, update, authenticate. Let's go and play around with this now. So let's go back to the presentation manager. So now we got it. We need the var Q client, I think it was. Right. New Q client. Var Q client equals new QUE client. Takes a connection string and a Q name. So something dev store account 1. I don't know what the full string is yet. We'll look it up in a second. And then this should be constant domain.constants.qnames.presentations.added. Okay. And I got rid of the page. Oh, good thing I have it still in Bing. We go here, and I want connection options, which I think I can get right from here. Once I scroll down, use development storage equals true. So let me try that. Use development storage equals true. And then if I have the Q client, I should get a Q client dot post send message async, and the message can be a only text. Oh, because I need to serialize it. It only takes text messages, so I need to kind of JSONify the message. So we are going to go with edit message dot to JSON. Let's see if I can luckily find a message or an extension method with that in there. Darn it, so complicated. I actually have a helper library that I built for this. I just need to push it in there. Let's just make sure it works by doing, let's just do await, and then I'm going to just put in the presentation ID to string, and we'll see if it works. And we still want to return the save presentation. So if we got this right, we're gonna get a copy of the save presentation. We're gonna create a message. This is gonna be to do. To use the message, create a Q client, and then we're going to send it asynchronously and then return here. So how do we go and validate that? We can call the API here, which I should have a controller method that does a save presentation. So this all works correctly, I will have a new presentation in there. So let's go to the database and see what we have. Last one is number 13. So luckily I have some scripts here to run and send out generic HTTP calls to our API. Once the server is up and running, I can go and send them. So where are my scratch ones? You're in here somewhere. Where'd you go? Scratch and consoles. Oh, that caught me by surprise. Keep getting this. I can't find a way to get my certificates loaded on this machine. This fails. Usually I get it working on the second time. Close the event log. Don't want certificates set up. Stop the service. Restart it. I did have it working yesterday. Why are you not working now? You're being very misbehaving. Normally I get prompted with the dialog box and I can just hit yes. Not sure why I'm not getting it right now. Let me check my configuration and see if this is why I messed around with this setting the other day to say, hey, run this first. Launch.NET profiler. So let's try this. We want to run that. Killing me. Let's try this. I'm going to close Chrome for a second. It might be cached with my work setup. So I'm using my work PC for it. Let's restart Chrome. Let's go back here. Oh, excuse me. Connection refused. I really want to tell it to not use the certificates. I can never get it to work on my machine here. That's why. Let's try without the HTTP local HTTP. Local host. I think it's 5001. Launch profile. All that is correct. Don't know why it worked yesterday and not today. IS won't work. Let's see if I do that. So I only want to run locally. Okay. Works there. So let's go back here and create this. It's without it. And I'm going to call this title Q, just so we can see it different. Q1. Now, if I run this, oh, it's 5,000. Never occurred. Failed to process. La, I broke it. Okay, let's debug and see what is wrong. Oh, guess accepting. Excuse me. Went to bed late last night writing a lot of blog posts. It's finally catching up to me. Let's breakpoint here. And then let's stop you. Debug you. So that works. Now let's go back and call you. Huh. Failed before I even got to the broken code. Oh, because this does run configuration, I think. I think it does. Let's see. API, I want the HTTP request. It doesn't really say what environment. I'm running it locally. Why didn't? Oh, let me put a different breakpoint in there. Maybe it didn't even get that far. Maybe I changed something in the code further up the pipeline and broke it. So let's go here. Breakpoint there. Recall this. Okay. So I got my breakpoint. And let's step over. Person ID is less than 0. Huh? What happened? What was my presentation ID? That should allow me to save it. Let's go back and see what the presentation ID was. I had all this working. Oh, I have less than or equal to 0, and it's going to be 0. My bad. So let's stop all these requests. Run it all. Go back here. Run local. Inserted number 14. If I go to the database somewhere in this mess and I refresh. Push with R. I have new record 14, which should say title from queue. So database record was added. We got it right. We should have in our Azure Storage Explorer a new record here. So let's refresh. Yes. With the message text of 14. So I was able to successfully use the storage queue on the Mac and get it working. Cool. Now I just got to clean up the rest of it. And I think I'll call it a stream for today. Thanks for the one person that stuck around and watched. I don't know who you are since I can't really see who the viewers are. If I know you, say hi. If I don't know you, say hi so I can get to know you.